Let's meet today's very special specialist. He's a very popular nationally syndicated radio talk show host, a former top advisor to several members of President Reagan's cabinet. He's the author of the new book, Rediscovering Americanism, but he specializes in constitutional law. My good friend, Mark Levin, is here. And he was the host of the first ever MLB Fan Cave web television show. He's a member of the punk rock band The Mighty Regis, and he's a political junkie, but he specializes in being an obsessed New York Yankees and Paul O'Neill fan. Mike O'Hara is here. Levin, I'm going to start with you, my man. Do we see eye to eye on this, or do you want to see something pass Obamacare repeal immediately?
By the way, is it no tie day on here? I just noticed.
It's no tie day for me every day.
It's always no tie day for Eric Bowler.
You think I like wearing this? Anyway, I'll tell you why I disagree with you. First of all, why do we keep arguing about health care in the context of what the left argues? Let's say they repeal it, and they give them 12 months advance notice. What do you think is going to happen? Insurance companies are going to create policies for 20 million people. There'll be new insurance companies that are created. You think they're going to leave that money on the table? 20 million people are going to be in the streets and die in this country? It'll never happen. We're a nation of entrepreneurs. That's number one. Number two, putting it off isn't going to fix it. You think they're going to just easily be able to slash taxes? That's not going to happen. Infrastructure.
Well, why not, Mark?
Yeah.
Why not?
Because the left doesn't believe in slashing taxes.
But if you combine infrastructure with tax reform,
why would
the left likes one and the right likes the other.
And why do you need the left, Mark, when there's a Republican-controlled House?
Well, it's a good question, isn't it? Yeah, well, unfortunately, there's some of the left in the Republican Party. But to answer your question on the infrastructure issue, so in other words, we should spend $1 trillion on infrastructure. I oppose that, too. So in other words, how about we take the agenda that conservatives claim they support, open up the health care system, explain to the American people we have to get rid of Obamacare and Obamacare Light, or we're going to have waiting periods, we're going to have rationing, and people with pre-existing conditions and senior citizens, they're the ones who are going to be hurt. I happen to agree with Rand Paul on that.
I agree, because I think that the problem is that now there's this idea that if something's not being done by the government, it can't be done any other way. And the conservative point of view is always supposed to be that that's not the truth. But like you said, a lot of people have gotten away from that.
And what do you think, Mr. O'Hara? Do you think they get this done if they separate repeal and replace into two? They may get two losses.
Well, first off, Eric, I just want to thank you for introducing Mark first, because it was like the Rolling Stones and this.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
But no, going back to the point, I kind of echoing, I think I definitely speak more for that moderate voice. I don't think you can repeal something without telling the American people what you're going to do next. It's like we have a giant hole in the boat. The ACA is our patch. You know what? Pull that patch. We'll get to it later. It will sink.
Can I answer that?
Please. That's why you're here, Mr. Levin.
The answer is not more government. The answer to the American people is, you like liberty?
Yep.
You like to be able to see a doctor you want to see? You want to see more different types of policies that aren't approved by the federal government? We've gotten away in this country from what makes us prosperous and great.
I'm sorry, Ed.
Go ahead.
Let's play politics for a second. We got 2018 midterm elections looming large, where the Democrats are saying, go ahead, repeal and replace. We hope you do, because we're going to tattoo you with this, because the way you did to us in 2010. Why rushing through this with premiums rising through 2018, as the CBO says, why is that a good thing politically?
Let me play politics with you. Why do the Republicans have a majority in the House and the Senate?
Because of Obamacare.
Because of repeal. Why did they take 1,000 seats?
No. They have the majority in the House and the Senate because of Obamacare in 2010.
Listen to me. I was part of the Tea Party. In 2010, we took over the House. 2014, we took over the Senate. It wasn't because we wanted to expand Medicaid. And it wasn't because we wanted to find new government centralized programs in order to replace a government centralized program. If they would get on message, push the Rand Paul idea, open up the economy, people would see what would happen as a result of it.
I think that I'm seeing something very lazy from the conservative, from the GOP. I won't call them conservatives. I'll say the GOP, because what you're talking about makes sense. Whether you voted for or you didn't, that's the mandate that they were elected on. Instead, what I see is a fish with another name. It's the same exact policy. In fact, in areas, I think it's going to be worse for certain parts of the country. And it's not exactly what they were put in the White House for, or the Senate, or the GOP, and so, or the Congress rather. So I guess this is my question. What about for those Americans that want to choose their doctor, that want to have health care that they can afford, do that. For those that are dependent for whatever the reason on the government, just something that's catastrophic, it's a very kind of low economic price tag associated with it. And then there's two systems. For those that can opt in and can afford to do something private, they do that. And if you can't, then you have catastrophic care.
Let me bring these guys in. Either one of you, your thoughts on, well, how about this idea? Remove the mandate of Obamacare, keep the infrastructure of Obamacare, and then let that Obamacare be the thing into 2018, and then you work on your GOP health care.
If we pull the mandate, there goes the money, and it's a death spiral.
Right.
So, I mean,
but you want to know something? It'll be more expensive to the government, right? And you'll hate that.
Agree.
It's bigger government. But at least you don't lose the House and the Senate in 2018.
Okay, but what we have now, talk about lose the House, lose the Senate, we're going to completely lose everything that makes this country great if this goes on this way. Because this bill, they want to pass it right away for political capital, but it has all the same exact issues as Obamacare did. It's potentially even more expensive, and it's conservatives know this because things like paying, hold on, let me finish, paying to insurance companies, they had previously been arguing were illegal according to the Constitution. And this will fail as it is now, and then we'll wind up with single payer.
Eric, the thing that I think needs to be seen in bright, sparkling colors is the ACA was pushed through arrogantly. The American people were told, this is what we're going to do, reconciliation vote, they got it through on a lawyer's trick. And it was grossly unpopular. So rather than try to do it right, the Republicans are doing the exact same thing.
That's the laziness that I'm speaking
about. Can I tell you guys something? One of the smartest men I know a while back was saying, here's what we really need to do. We need to tackle the cost of health care, not insurance. And he outlined a list of ideas of tackling the cost of health care. I don't know, putting pricing up there, drug pricing. You know what that guy's name was? Mark Levin.
He was brilliant.
Why didn't the GOP put any of those ideas into this new bill?
Look, I've had it with the GOP. I'm a conservative. I vote Republican because it's not the Democrats. But the Republican Party is a progressive party. The Democrat Party is a radical left party. But that doesn't mean we stop speaking, doesn't mean we stop going to the American people. I am telling you, to answer all your questions, what is out there for people if we take Obamacare away? The world is out there for people. Opportunity, investment, all kinds of things you can't even think about right now. There'll be insurance companies that prop out. Here's my question, everybody here, if I may. Why can't we choose our own health care? Why does the government have to decide tell us what to choose? These senators, most of whom are knuckleheads, they get to tell me what kind of plan I can have.
And then, by the way, they opt out of whatever care. They opt out of Obamacare.
People think that if the government's not doing it, that we can't do it.
Right.
I've done so many things today without the government helping me at all, not to brag, and it was totally fine. I'm doing just great.
Well, and that's fine and that's fair. Myself, I'm the beneficiary rather of a Pell Grant, so I do think there are spaces where the government's help in certain areas for certain things.
Right, I'm not.
So I think that Mark's point is well taken. I love the idea of Americans doing for themselves, and for those hopefully smaller and smaller portion that can't, there's something separate from
Well, I don't think anyone's arguing with that.
Time now for the docket. Susan Rice. Few names from President Obama's administration conjure up more images of skepticism, shadiness, and scandal. So what do we know for sure about the former National Security Advisor? Well, we know that she was quite literally dead wrong about the reason that 4 Americans were killed in Libya. Either she was woefully misinformed, or worst case scenario, she flat out lied. And we know that she, quote, knew nothing about unmasking Trump associates when she appeared on PBS, only to then acknowledge on MSNBC that she did know about the unmasking, but, quote, didn't leak anything to anybody. Now, again, whether that was Rice misspeaking or just plain lying, well, I'll leave that for you to decide. Now, after denying to appear before a Senate hearing to get to the bottom of these questions back in May, Rice has now agreed to testify before the House Intel Committee next month, and the all-important question will be, did she break the law by unmasking Trump associates and her overall handling of classified information? It sounds really intense, and it is absolutely very important. But from a legal standpoint, it will likely prove to be anticlimactic, because as politically motivated as it might have been, that will be nearly impossible to prove, because the only legal standard for unmasking is that she needed to learn the names of U.S. citizens who were incidentally collected because it provided some foreign intelligence value. Now, that's about as broad of a legal standard as our system allows, but the point is, it's allowed. Therefore, absent proof that she actually lied to obtain the information or that she was the actual leaker of the names, her request to unmask the names of Mike Flynn and others was likely inappropriate, I think likely politically motivated, but not illegal. So I'm turning to you, Counselor Mark Levin. How did I do?
You did great.
Thank you.
But to me, the issue isn't the law.
Okay.
To me,
But that's what they told me. That's what the producers told me.
Oh, well,
I'm just
you know.
kidding. Go ahead.
You're practicing law without a license.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I believe there was domestic surveillance going on.
Sure.
They went to the FISA court twice. They were rejected the first time. Those are the reports of the media. The second time, they got their warrant. That judge is furious with what they did with that warrant and their abuse of power, and she said so. It's not only Susan Rice. Most of the unmasking is done at the request of the FBI. So it's Mr. Comey who needs to testify about this too. It's Mr. Clapper who needs to testify about this, Mr. Brennan. So the American people can know. The point of Congress is not, as you know, to charge anybody with anything. It's to try and figure out what took place from a legislative perspective. Let's get those people in. Let's get them under oath. Let's find out about unmasking. Let's find out about the whole thing. Because Mr. Nunes, when he saw those documents, he was stunned. By the way, Devin Nunes isn't some right-wing kook. He's sort of a moderate, traditional Republican from California. And when he saw this stuff, he was flipping out. So I think we do need to get to the bottom of it.
Absolutely. What are you looking forward to?
I think, just echoing your point, I think it will be ultimately anticlimactic. I kind of picture her like Joe Pesci, bragging to the rest of the mobsters about, they got nothing on me, out of me, nothing. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't feel like she's ever going to give up any information, because it's more about party and speaking points and agenda and covering everyone than the American people finding out the truth.
Here's my thing, though. I don't think this is one of those instances where it's, okay, it's legal, let's just let it go and keep living how we were living. I think it's, okay, this was legal, let's take a look at the law. We need to take a look at the fact that this standard is so broad for these officials. They can just go around collecting from whatever candidates they choose and just say, oh, well, I needed that too, I needed that too, and there's no consequence whatsoever. Just because it's somebody that's on their side now, it could be on our side. I don't even know. I mean, of course, I'm not partisan, I'm libertarian, but people that are in Congress need to take a look at this, because right now, this is something that allows corruption to get out of control very easily.
So there are two issues, and you point that out in the docket. There's the unmasking and there's the leaking. So on the unmasking part, we can have her testify and point to the fact that she, Susan Rice, chose to unmask General Flynn when the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA said, no, he needs to stay masked. There's nothing about unmasking him that's going to make the country safer. There's a reason she did it, likely politically, as you point out. And if that's okay with everyone, that's fine with me. But then she goes, and you point out, she goes one step further and says, but I didn't leak. And we're supposed to believe Susan Rice that she didn't leak when she lied. I'm going to say it, Ebony. She lied about Benghazi. She was the one who went out on 5 different talk shows on September 25th and said it was a video that inspired Benghazi. And she knew very well, we know in hindsight now, that she was made well aware it had nothing to do with the video and it was a terror attack. So if you're going to trust her, you can't trust her.
But I mean, Eric, wasn't she kind of the foot soldier? I mean, she was told to bring that information to the Sunday shows.
Okay.
So I'm saying,
Fine.
like, now now the gloves are off.
5 shows and say it was the video that inspired the Benghazi attacks, knowing very well that it wasn't. So now she's saying, yeah, but I didn't leak.
Here's the bottom line. Yes, the evidence exists on who asked for what. The NSA said they have it. The FBI has it too. One of the committee chairmen said that the FBI is not cooperating with the committee. Said the NSA is cooperating with the committee. And it's not just Susan Rice.
No, it's not.
It's the others. And I'd like to know, quite frankly, in the president's presidential briefing every day, what information was provided him about FISA court requests and unmasking.
Here's why it's important. When you lean on Susan Rice, and maybe she didn't leak, and you lean into her, when she gets a little nervous, when you start tightening the dragnet around her, she'll tell us who actually told her to leak, or who actually did leak. Then she'll go to jail.
I don't think
someone's going to. You can't do it. Someone committed a felony. Somebody.
They'll find some low-level patsy and hang it on.
Listen, I wish these members of Congress were smart enough to do that. They're not smart enough to do that.
Yeah.
But she should still testify.
Yeah, at least she's testifying this time, which is more than we can say back in May. Up next, the firestorm between President Trump and MSNBC host Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski escalating into a complete inferno. Now, even with allegations of blackmail. Stay with us.
The fight between President Trump and MSNBC hosts Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski taking a bizarre new twist today. The duo addressing President Trump's Twitter attack against them by disclosing an alleged threat by the White House.
We got a call that, hey, the National Enquirer is going to run a negative story against two guys. And it was, Donald is friends with, the president is friends with the guy that runs the National Enquirer. And they said, if you call the president up and you apologize for your coverage, then he will pick up the phone and basically spike the story. The calls kept coming and kept coming, and they were like, call, you need to call, please call. So, come on, Joe, just pick up the phone and call him. It's blackmail.
President Trump denying the allegation, where else but on Twitter, writing, quote, watched low-rated Morning Joe for first time in long time. Fake news. He called me to stop a National Enquirer article. I said no. Bad show. Eric?
Eric, thanks a lot.
Thoughts?
My offer from yesterday stands that when two of your friends are fighting, you just want them to end the fight and you solve the fight, they solve the problem. I would love Donald Trump to oversee the marriage of Mika and Morning Joe.
This is banana land, okay? He's the president. He's the president of the United States. He's not like. Why is he trying to be like some cheap replacement for Joan Rivers, who, by the way, was the only one who could ever successfully make plastic surgery jokes? His one isn't even a joke. It was a mean thing, and he's continuing it.
And I bet both of them, the messages are getting, his big economic messages are getting stepped on. I get all that, but it's the despicable left that's saying, oh my God, we need to impeach Donald Trump for this. They're insane.
Mark Levin, do you agree that it is the despicable left's fault that he tweeted about Mika Brzezinski having a facelift?
Even though that's not what I said, but...
I always believe it's despicable left's fault for everything.
Right. Well, 2 points for consistency.
Yeah. But let me say this. Let me come to the president's defense, at least somewhat on this. I went back. I don't watch this show. As I said on a program the other night, this is a bad show. These people are very vile. I went back and saw what they've said about the President of the United States. You want to be treated with respect? You can disagree with the President of the United States, then you act with some respect.
Can I offer?
Yeah.
Go. I hear
these
you.
Two people have the, they know what's going on in Greenwich Village in the upper east side of Manhattan. They have no idea what's going on in the country. They're vicious, vile attacks on Trump. I know we pick out his tweet, and I know you all say, well, the president shouldn't lower himself. But let me tell you something. I'm old enough to remember when presidents lowered themselves all the time. When
Bill Clinton
was having sexually assaulting women. This doesn't excuse it. I'm just explaining how out of control the whole debate is. Sexually assaulted women in the Oval Office, and we were told that was a personal matter. Hold on, let me just do one more.
Go ahead.
I remember a president who was revered, who had an affair with an East German spy, who had an affair with a mob boss's girlfriend, who had an affair with a woman, an intern who was 17, and he's held up as this great icon. I'm not saying, if it's good for one, it's good. This was a damn tweet, and the whole country's supposed to stop and say, he should resign. They should impeach him.
I'm certainly not saying that. I just said I feel like I'm living in banana land when I wake up and see news like this.
2 points, Mark Levin. Okay, so I'm going to say I agree with you that this show, Mika and Joe show, is a beltway inside politics kind of show. They are very out of touch with regular everyday Americans. I agree with you. But isn't that what leadership looks like? Isn't leadership saying they, are a mess, they're petty, they talk about me, my tan, my hair, let me just do a little bit better? That's my one assertion, is that's actual leadership, not following as they do, but doing better than them. And as for Clinton, look, I agree, he was a hot mess, right? But that's also why he had articles of impeachment that were...
No, because he lied under oath. We
have to go for a second. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Welcome back to the Fox News Specialist. Our specialists today are Mark Levin, who's the author of a new book, Rediscovering Americanism and the Tyranny of Progressivism, along with Michael Hara. We'll continue our conversation. So President Trump ramping up efforts to stop Chicago's onslaught of gun violence. The president tweeting today, quote, crime and killings in Chicago have reached such epidemic proportions that I'm sending in federal help. 1,714 shootings in Chicago this year. 20 ATF agents are now being deployed to assist Chicago police in combating the violence. So I want to start with you on this, Mark. Certainly, the president has talked about this. Even when he was a Kennedy, he talked about eradicating this type of violence in Chicago. A dear friend of mine, friend of the show here, even Gianno Caldwell, his brother was in a car, literally watched his friend get his brains blown out. But can this be something that a government solution is really going to be helpful around?
In the end, it won't solve it. But it certainly is necessary to give it the old try. Look, my attitude about this is, in many of these big cities, you have liberal judges, You have liberal mayors. We've had a liberal federal immigration laws for years. MS-13, other gangs coming into this country. You have mayors who play politics with law enforcement. They undermine the cops. There aren't enough cops on the street. And this, in part, contributes to this. But you're right, there's cultural issues to it. It's a very complex issue. But if you're going to be a mayor and there is going to be a government, then do the right things.
So, my hometown, Chicago, it breaks my heart that it has the nickname Chirac. It's awful what's going on in Chicago. It's one of the most stringent gun control cities in the country, maybe even on the planet, and it has some of the worst gun crime on the planet as well. What's happening, though, is it's isolated in 2 major neighborhoods in Chicago, and there's massive amounts of gun violence in there, and the police are saying, look, if we go in there, they're willing to go in and risk their lives, and that's what they do. But if they don't have the support, as Mark points out, of the very, very liberal Rahm Emanuel mayor, meaning if something happens and they're going to go up, face charges for something, they're a little bit more reluctant to go down that dark alley than they might have to be if they had the support of the mayor's office.
Mike, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, coming from a family that has a lot of law enforcement in it, being Irish Catholic, cops need backup. Yep. But I think, going what Mark was saying, it's not going to be the only thing. There has to be kind of programs to reach out to Chicago's youth and give them something, some kind of hope. I mean, most of these kids turn to gangs because they feel that that's the only family they have.
All right, now on to our specialists, Mark Levin and Mike O'Hara. Mark, my question's for you. Whose book should I read first? Yours or both?
Love it.
Savage, Kat, savage.
You can listen to his audio and read mine.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Can I, first of all, very quickly, Rob Monaco did one of the packages, Jackie Boothby did the other. That's a lot of work putting those packages together, so thank you both. Mark, I'm just going to say you've been one of my mentors and one of my heroes for a very long time. Thank you for joining us on The Specialist. I'm glad you came.
And God bless you, all of you, and good luck with this book. I'm not kidding. It is a great book.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.